Inside Blitz NFL Week 7 with Ron and Ted Sobel from Sports USA Live. How's it going, Theodore?
Great, guys. Good to see you again, and let's have some fun this week. We got a couple of good games, and fortunately, we made a change in one of them. We were going to have the Patriots 3 out of 4 weeks, and now they have been tossed to the wayside. We got Atlanta and Tampa Bay first, and then the Chargers and the Chiefs, one of the games of the week. And, one of the things about the Atlanta-Tampa Bay series is and it's one of those things where Ron and I have talked about forever. Atlanta, New Orleans, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, that division. They're always 2 points, 1.5 point spreads. They're always close finishes. And I don't see why this one would be a whole lot different, to be honest with you. And that is assuming Desmond Ridder doesn't throw 3 more picks.
Well,
yeah, it's good to be back.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
That's true. Yeah, good to be back. Just getting organized a little bit here. You're right, Ted. These games are, well, this year it's not only close, but this year with Tom Brady out of the division and Drew Brees out of the division, 3 of the 4 teams think that they could win that division, the NFC South, and they could probably win it with 8 wins the way things are going, unless Tampa gets on a roll. So this is a big game for Atlanta. In a way, it's a big game for New Orleans because Tampa would have a little bit more distance if they won this particular game.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Tampa is how they're using Baker Mayfield and how he is responding to it. It looks like he is evolving as a human and as a quarterback. To me, he's still a top 5 greatest story in the history of sports, being a 2-time walk-on, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a top pick in the NFL draft. I mean, it's just, if Disney made a movie, they would say it was too stupid. So whatever he does any time in his NFL career, to me, is gravy. So he's really coming on as a pretty decent leader, and he's playing very well. And, as long as he's not turning the ball over, Tampa Bay's got a pretty good defense. And they've added a few offensive weapons. They still need more, but they're definitely competitive to win the division.
Well, we thought they were a potential teardown at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
and they're certainly
exactly.
Not.
Number 1 red zone defense, too,
They were pretty much 100% healthy against the Lions, and they were close most of the game. But, Baker didn't have his best game. He missed some receivers, and I think that was primarily because, the pressure was a little bit sending him out and about. And usually he fares better when he's under pressure. But the Lions could have been burnt a few times if he had gotten the ball to the receivers correctly.
Where, Cris, do you have these 2 teams rated offensively?
Offensively, well, I had to restart my computer 2 minutes before we went live, and it disappeared my spreadsheet. So I'll have to look on my phone quickly.
Okay. Just curious, because both teams have offensive limitations for me. There's certainly a ceiling on Desmond Ridder. I thought there would be not that bad a floor, but the 3 interceptions was out of character for Ridder. But there's a ceiling to what Atlanta can do and what Ridder can do. And I have a feeling that Baker Mayfield manages offenses better than he does putting up 30 points a game. Wherever he's been managing offenses.
Yeah, Mr. Ridder is, by the way, thanks for asking, Russell. I don't, my Hawaiian shirt is in Hawaii because it's not here. Anyway, Desmond Ridder hasn't won a road game yet in his career. So he needs to figure that out, and in a hurry if he wants to get in the win column this week. Look, in the division, both teams 1-0. It's totally up for grabs. This is a huge game, and why can't Atlanta win this game on the road?
Well, are the Panthers live in this division now?
Are they live?
Yeah, I mean, are they out of it? They're still live.
They're out of the season, is what they are. The last winless team left in week 7, I would say good night, everybody.
Yes, Ron, to answer your question, I have Atlanta and Tampa Bay pretty close. Tampa Bay only marginally better offensively.
Assume both are in the bottom half of the league standings.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Both in the bottom third.
So another question for both of you. Tale of turnovers, as I show it, could be off a point or two. Atlanta is -6 in turnover ratio. Tampa is +6 in turnover ratio. If you consider they played 5 games and 6 games or whatever, that's a full turnover a game flip turnaround. Is that sustainable? I mean, how do we judge this? I wouldn't automatically assume that in this particular matchup that Tampa is going to win the turnover ratio.
Exactly.
So if you knock down the edge so far, -6 to +6, shouldn't we give Atlanta some credit in this game? What are your thoughts
Absolutely.
about sustainable turnover ratios?
Well, especially in a matchup like this in the division, which we expected to be a close one, it only takes one turnover to be a difference. So we don't have to look at 3 turnovers. If that's the case, you're in big trouble. One of the things I like about what Tampa is doing is that they are playing smart football with a pretty average roster. So as long as that continues, they should be in every game because it's the NFL, and you're not supposed to lose by a lot in any game in the NFL if you're decent. So you win the turnover ratio, you're going to win a lot of games. You're going to be in every game. But this game, it's just another one. I don't expect it to be a factor.
I'm hoping for some regression because I lean the Atlanta direction. So as Scott mentioned, I think it's an awesome. I think it's the preferable method is to tease Atlanta. So that's where I'm looking at in this game. I have Atlanta as actually a slightly better team.
Has Tampa been 2.5 all week, or do they get the 3, Eddie?
I have not seen a 3 pop up, but it's a strong 3, or it's strong 2.5.
Oh, okay. So it's possible, you think?
Yeah. 3 might force my hand because of what you said, Ted, at the outset. And that's 3 points in these kinds of divisional games. It would be hard for me to justify, for example, laying 3 points in the game. If you like Tampa, how could you really lay 3 points in a game like this where Baker Mayfield has thrown 2 TD passes all season? We can say what we want about how Baker Mayfield, fits the scheme and this and that. And I like Baker Mayfield, but 2 TD passes projects to what, 6 for the whole year? That's not exactly a fantastic stat to have.
Well, I think, Ron, your comment applies to a lot of games this week. You can, as far as I'm concerned, you can only bet one way in a lot of these games this week.
Yeah.
I want to know from Ron what he thinks of Ritter when he came into the league and where he is now and what your expectations were.
My expectations were pretty much where he is, save for the 3 interceptions last week. I think he manages games well. I think he uses his legs well. I think he's a smart quarterback. I have a concern about the Atlanta coaching staff. They're very one-minded in terms of we're going to establish the run and we're going to beat you that way, but they're unlike other teams that try to establish the run. If you look at the Eagles, if they have to pass, they have 2 very strong wide receivers. If you look at the Lions, they formatted their team with a tremendous offensive line, a little bit better than the Atlanta Falcons, which isn't a bad offensive line, but stretch the field wide receivers. I like Drake London, but he is not a stretch the field wide receiver. I have a concern that the Atlanta coaching staff won't get the maximum out of Desmond Ritter, but I think Desmond Ritter has kind of fulfilled what I think he is as a quarterback.
Okay, and separate from Desmond Ritter, shouldn't they be getting the most out of Bijan Robinson?
Too early in his career.
He doesn't have to run it every time, but I want that ball in his hands.
It's what have you done lately? Let's rush these guys into action. We see that a lot with quarterbacks. I see that a lot with talk about Gibbs in Detroit, about Robinson here. Let's not kill them week 5. They're used to playing 11, 12 week NCAA seasons with bye weeks and stuff like that. in the disjointed way and the physical nature of the NFL, I'd rather these running backs get their feet wet for the whole first rookie year than to just throw them into the fire. And he's going to be thrown into the fire soon enough.
I think another look on this is if you're a junkie and you like those 3-team teasers, the over 27 looks like something to consider if you think that there's going to be any scoring at all. Don't you think these teams can accidentally score 28, Ron?
It seems that way. I mean, this is destined for 1917. Somebody's going to win 1917 because that's what these teams have been playing to. If you look at their numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but it cries 1917.
And 19 must be Tampa because Baker can't throw more than one touchdown. So I'm thinking the other two would be Desmond Ridder TDs. A lot of field goals.
We have Bertie here, who's really been the man who speaks about Atlanta. So I see that Bertie has made a comment now. We've got to have some Bertie comments on Atlanta so that we can get some insight into this game.
Well, the last three games have landed on 36 or 37.
Yeah,
I want to know, did Bertie get his name because of the Dirty Birds? Is that how the name came or no?
Gonna have to ask him.
Tell us, Bertie. Tell us.
Yeah. Right. They may be forced to pass a little bit more in this game because Atlanta's showing some tendencies. Both teams are showing some old school tendencies about defending the run over the pass, and that's what we may see here. And plus, Atlanta. If you look at an Atlanta team, they have 10 sacks this year, so everybody's going to say, "Wow, that's fantastic! This is great! This is the best we've ever seen." 5 of them came against Washington, who can't defend, their quarterback for the life of them. They're average 6 a game, so 5 was actually a disappointment, and 5 in the other 5 games. So they have 10 sacks in 6 games, which is still not 30 per, for the whole season. Atlanta is probably not going to get to Baker Mayfield.
Right. But is Desmond Ridder the wrong guy to be throwing 85 times in 2 games at this stage?
He needs practice.
Why do you think he threw 3 picks? Tell him throw 10 more and you're going to have a few more.
I don't do field goal props as a rule, but if you want to bet the over field goals in this game, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Are you related to Larry Bird, Bertie?
He's related to Marty Bird from the Ozarks.
Oh, okay. The last name is Bird. Very good.
So
in terms of plays on this game, I would slightly consider +3 in Atlanta. Maybe put something on it. Cris, anything? Teases, I guess.
Teaser town.
Okay, there you go.
Ron's least favorite thing, a teaser.
What's the next game you guys want to talk about?
LA Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. One of the games of the week.
The devil, though, that line is moving as we speak.
Where has it gone to? Last I saw was 5.5. What is it now?
It has made a huge jump up to 6.
A huge jump. Okay.
But there's still a lot of 5.5s, and Bookmaker still has a 5 -15.
All right. Well, it's the Brandon Staley factor. Seems like every week they found another way to lose last week. Not all his fault, of course, but Justin Herbert's got the broken middle finger on his offhand, which didn't appear to be a big deal, and maybe it isn't. And he's certainly talking it down, and nobody wants to have any broken finger if you're a quarterback. But they missed a few throws, some stupid defensive plays. They could have won that game very easily if they just played smart and didn't turn over the ball. There's something about the Chargers. If they lose this game, they're 2-4 with some tough games coming up. Even, not that this one isn't, but just as, a tough slate of games over the next several weeks. I think they're done if they lose this game, and I don't expect them to win.
What do you show, Cris, for the metrics?
I'm looking up some very interesting history between these two teams because I noticed the last 5 games have gone over, and I wanted to go farther back than that. But I don't know how.
Now,
And by the way, I love Eckler this week. I give him the ball a gazillion times this week, or get him the ball. Let's put it that way.
you do have a rest disadvantage, though. The last one Kansas City is going to have in terms of a rest advantage, where they've had 10 days and the Chargers have had 6. And of course, the way the Chargers keep losing, when do they start focusing on KC? But you have a lot of factors going into this because the Chargers and KC know each other very well. And the Chargers play really dead even games against the Chiefs. It's one thing or another. Unfortunately, usually a field goal or a coaching decision or something like that. But they've been almost dead even throughout their last few games historically. And if you look way back, well, you don't have to look that far back, but every time the Chargers are 4 or more points as the dog, they're really, really good. You're talking about a 65% situation, 68 and 40 against the spread when they are +4 or more, and this being a divisional game. I hate the rest disadvantage. I wish we had 7-on-7, 7 days versus 7, because then I think the Chargers would be live. I just don't know how to factor that in, Chris and Ted, because the teams know each other. They don't need that much preparation time.
No, if you're getting 6 points in this game, I think you absolutely have to take it. I still don't trust the Chiefs offense. They're having trouble finishing drives. They still don't trust each other from a receiver standpoint. It looks like they're just a work in progress for who knows how many weeks, and maybe for the rest of the year. You never know. They're not the same team they were, in the past with the quality of receivers. So they got to figure, or maybe the kids will come through, but they're not ready yet. And I still think that the Chargers will make it a close game because it should be a close game. But yes, short week, disadvantage. Coaching, disadvantage. And what I like about the Chargers is if they play smart defensively, it's just going to be a close game. And 6 points is just too much in the series every single time.
I have an observation about Justin Herbert. I don't know how you guys feel about this. He was very assertive. He didn't show necessarily pain in his thumb, but I did think more than usual his throws sailed high. He was throwing a lot of balls over his receivers and firing them. So the firing part is good. That didn't bother, with his motion, his planting, anything else that's wrong with him. But the throws were high, and I think that was a function of the injury.
Well, maybe, but if you watch the previous 2 games, there was some of that too before he got hurt. He has not been sharp for about a month, and he's been off. He's missed some open receivers, not just this week. So I don't know. I mean, he's an elite quarterback, but he's not doing it every week.
What makes him elite? Because you say he's been kind of off this year. I think he's been off for a year and a half.
Well, I don't know if it's just been him. I think his stats have been pretty decent for a guy that you expect to be, one of the top several quarterbacks in the league. But you still got to win. You got to win, and that's all that matters. So he's got elite talent. Let's put it that way. Whether he is an elite winner is a TBD.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that Birdie had asked the same question. It's
but he has elite talent. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's got to show up in the win column. That's all.
So did Jeff George. Where did that get him?
No, Jeff George did not have Jeff George had an elite arm. He didn't have elite talent. Okay. And his head
Where's Herbert's elite talent?
His head was an elite joke, Jeff George. So don't go there. That's a bad comparison. Just because you could throw the ball 10 miles doesn't give you elite talent.
I haven't seen it from Herbert in 2 seasons.
Well,
yeah, I think he's adjusting to the wide receivers. The loss of Mike Williams, we talked about that previously. Yep. The contested catch, one of the best contested catch artists in the NFL. He's gone. Q Johnson, who some people mysteriously bet on the overs last week, which I vehemently disagreed with, is not ready for the NFL. If anything, we saw how his performance was against Georgia in the title game. He basically runs one route right now, and that's.
I was going to say, as a route runner mostly, right? And if you can't run routes in the NFL, you're years behind.
And he's not ready, and he didn't show any contested catch August ability. In fact, he had the dropsies, so to speak, in that particular time. I like Joshua Palmer, but they're still getting up to speed with that. Conversely, the guy I really like, and a story that was untold, is Rashee Rice for Kansas City, and he's coming into his own. And I've known he's capable of being a #1 wide receiver in this league. Everybody made a big deal, and it was a big deal, that Zay Flowers had a one-on-one workout with Patrick Mahomes, and that kind of pushed how high Flowers was going to be drafted, which was fantastic. I love that, and so on. But they didn't draft Zay Flowers. They drafted Rashee Rice, and he had a private workout with Pat Mahomes, the only other wide receiver to do that. And that got lost in the shuffle that Mahomes had a say in who was being drafted. And I think Rice is going to be just getting better and better as the season goes along.
Where did you rate him coming out?
I rated Rashee Rice at the top of the second round.
Okay.
And he went in a little bit later than that, but certainly with wide receiver 1 talent. Just a tremendous player at SMU, got open, had a little bit of Chris Olave savviness, if you remember him coming out of Ohio State and what we've all thought about him. Rice was a little bit more, I would say, raw compared to Olave, was camera ready from day one. But Rice has some characteristics that translate very well to the NFL.
Well, I know that the Chargers have a very nice history of bouncing back off their losses, and they seem to have great results on the road. And 6 does seem to be a lot of points. They played within 3 the last 2 matches, but the 3 previous were 6 or more. So that's just a recent trend to be within the 6 range. I don't show a reason to play the Chargers based on my information, though. What do you see on yours, Ron?
Yeah, I show the number based on the rest differential and other metrics as being accurate at 6. So I like the Charger situations. I like the fact that they know each other. I dislike the fact that I don't think Herbert's at 100% and the short rest. The only thing that I show, which is a weird thing, again, we're getting into areas that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, but I show a slight tendency for this game to be high scoring. And if you don't believe the Chargers are going to bounce back, I would translate that, and this is something I want you to comment on, Chris, in a Kansas City team total over. What are we seeing on that? Or what, potentially we're probably going to see a 27 on a team total over for Kansas City.
Well, you're going to lay, it's 26.5 over strong or 27.5 under strong. So
yeah,
it's right there.
I think the 27 is an interesting number because it comes into play a couple of field goals and touchdowns and stuff like that. I just have a feeling that based on my numbers and what I'm showing, that might be something that I consider this week.
I just say play the overs on Eckler in everything. I think he's a key guy this week. He's healthy now after and then considering the short week, and I don't think they overused him at all on Monday. So I just like the way the situation fits for him in this game. And you want to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands as much as possible. So that's one way to do it if you're being reasonably successful with him.
It just, it's odd that this total is 3 points lower than the lowest scoring game that these guys have had since 2020.
Yeah.
Or since
I think it's a function of the Kansas City defense, which is, are they number 1, 14.5 point? If we're comparing Kansas City's defense this year to other years, this is a very good year for Kansas City's defense.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another reason why I might gravitate more to the team total as opposed to the overall game total.
And Chris Jones is back to being himself, which is outstanding after the holdout. By the way, one of the great stats, Patrick Mahomes has never lost at home to a losing record team. He is 16-0. So interesting number there.
The Chargers are losers.
2-3 coming in.
So right now we're kind of on the fence with plays. It sounds like you and me, Cris.
Don't fall.
Don't fall. There's a good question from Tony Jones in the chat, and I think Cris and I have a little disagreement here in terms of where we would power rank Cincinnati if Burrow were 100%. We talked about this a little bit on Tuesday. It's just interesting because I don't want to artificially, and Cris cautioned me about this, I don't want to artificially give Cincinnati extra points because there are some aspects of their team that have slightly underperformed right now. And they've got a couple of tough games. But I do think I would bump them up a little bit. I wouldn't put them in the top 10, but they would be probably in the 11 to 15 range. And Cris doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can't artificially inflate based on what somebody's supposed to do. I mean, at some point, you are what you are. And we've gone through how many games this season. So, sorry. I mean, he's looking much better and he's playing much better. And I think he's not too far off from being healthy.
He's moving better too.
Yeah. I mean, but that team's still getting completely outplayed. I mean, they were very fortunate that Seattle couldn't take advantage of their many red zone opportunities. If you just look at the stat line, who won that game? Yeah. So
I agree with that.
There's a lot of Bengal fans, and they're very passionate. They're like the Dolphin fans, and you are what the numbers say you are, unfortunately, and sometimes you're not going to be happy with it. But there's more wrong with this team than Burrow's health. And part of it's defensively, and they're defensively they have been improving because they were bottom of the barrel, and now they're middle of the road, and so they've had a lot of improvement. So that's a great sign for them.
So they have kids transitioning from the Jesse Bates who have left and one of their pass rushers who have left, and I think this bye comes at a very good time. As far as elevating their power rating into the top 15, I will take a cautious approach, but I actually expect to see defensive improvement as we move forward.
Unfortunately, they play San Francisco next.
Yeah.
On the road.
And then they have Buffalo, I think, and they have a couple of really tough games coming up.
Well, welcome to the league, boys.
On my trailing 5-week metrics, we know they didn't start off well, but they haven't overall improved over the last 5 weeks. They're running steady. So something to be aware of. Though. There's more wrong with that team than Burrow. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. Are you ready for my rant?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I asked Cris to give me 5 minutes on New England.
5 minutes?
We'll give you 3.
That's too much. We got rid of that game for that reason.
Embarrassment is not the right word. It's probably sad, pitiful, somber, discouraged. I just can't believe what's happened to this franchise. I watched this team, with no straight bet on the game, down 19-10, go on a 9-minute drive with no guarantee of a touchdown, with no hurry up offense. I mean, they didn't even snap the ball most of the time until there were even fewer than 5 seconds left on the clock. There was absolutely no urgency on this team. It was historically, we've known Bill Belichick is not a great drafter. What he does do is he generally takes turnovers and flips them in his favor, which is clearly not happening this year. He generally wins the special team battle, which is clearly not happening this year with Nick Foles out on the street and with their current kicker 4 out of 8. 50% doesn't cut it in the NFL. And remember, they drafted a kicker a couple years before that, and he never even saw the field. So they're 0 for 2 with recent kickers in that area. So they, no wide receiver speed. They drafted 4 running backs in 2021 and 2022. One of them is on the team. Every analytical person who understands the game of the NFL knows that when you hand the ball off or you pass the ball to Ezekiel Elliott, every defensive coordinator is clapping because it goes against every policy, every metric that tells you that it's a winnable play.
It's a guaranteed 2.5 yards.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott will actually put you further behind in win opportunity every time he handles the ball. That's just a fact of life and where he is with his career and the scheme, which actually throws to him in the flat 3 or 4 yards at a clip. Now, the defense used to be able to compensate with a great cover scheme, which they still have, and a pass rush. But Matthew Judon is out for the year. They had 10 sacks in their first 4 games. Everything was fine. He's been out of the lineup. They were projected to have 5.5 sacks in the next 2 games, between 5 and 6. They've had 2. So we're talking about a team that is now regressed in terms of getting to opposing quarterbacks, puts more pressure on the other team to get on their defense so they can't get off the field. And then when they do get off the field, they're running a 1960s offense. Now, on the Wednesday show that Cris participated in, your weekly Bet US show, Cris, that you and Steve Fezzik made a great point about Bill Belichick and about coaches who are over 60 years of age. He said they kind of lose their fastball in a way. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but not, a lot of the coaches, I guess you wouldn't put Pete Carroll in that conversation,
Exactly.
but
Can't put him there.
because they've reinvented, and Andy Reid reinvents himself and stuff like that. But I'm going to read something from Bill Walsh, from something that was said about Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh participated in the first NFL draft as head coach of the 49ers and changed the future of the franchise. Without a first-round pick, he selected Owens as a wide receiver. He selected Joe Montana in the 3rd round. And in the 10th round, based on a personal workout, which weren't done in those days, a personal workout, he drafted a wide receiver named Dwight Clark, who did some great things. Now, when Bill Walsh was 66 years old, and much the same as Bill Belichick, they kind of feel like they're smarter than everybody else in the room. They're the smart guy. They can go off the wall.
The genius,
they can draft
right?
people. Yeah. And they, what they do can touch gold. Well, Jim Druckenmiller was the first-round pick when Bill I mean, how many times have we inserted his name into an NFL conversation? Jim Druckenmiller was the first-round draft pick when he was the head coach. And then when he was team president in the famous Tom Brady draft, he drafted Giovanni Carmazzi.
I will never
if you
forget
remember him.
I do.
Now, quiz question. We don't have a lot of people here. Do you remember what college Giovanni Carmazzi came out of? I can tell you he didn't play well in the NFL, but it was Bill Walsh trying to think that, hey, I've got somebody you don't have, and he's going to work out. And I think that's Bill Belichick right now. That's my rant.
Yes, 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 and yes. But what I stressed last week, even I'm going to stress times 1,000,000 this week. The biggest disappointment in the league this year, coaching, is Bill O'Brien. End of story. It's not close. It's a joke. The whole thing we talked about last year, they don't have an offensive coordinator. The second they got O'Brien, that will make a big difference. What the hell has he done? He looked like he hasn't watched an NFL game in 10 years. I don't know what he's doing, but he hasn't done anything to help this team.
So, Cris, any comments on what's going on in New England?
Excuse me. I've been getting in a few wagers here, but
good timing.
Nothing I said, huh?
It's absolutely inexplicable that these guys will just let themselves just like disintegrate. I mean, why don't you get out when you're on top? Or I just don't understand how he didn't realize that this team had no hope whatsoever. I mean, last season was bad enough. We talked about it before last season, saying, oh, well, that was the perfect time for him to retire. He's coming back because he knows he has something. And then he makes Patricia the offensive coordinator. We start to think he's losing his mind. Okay, well, he'll bow out gracefully at the end of the season, and he didn't, and he came back. Why? I mean, I just don't understand why he would come back after the history he has, right, with the best case scenario to be 500, and he can't even do that. And it's embarrassing. If that was me, I would just leave and resign and say, you know what? I've lost my fastball. Sorry.
I don't think Mac Jones is nearly as bad as he's looked, too, because when he looks good, he looks like he's in control. Right now, he looks like, I don't want to be here like the rest of this team. So I don't know where you put, is that just a confidence thing, or he's just not that good and the league's figured him out? What do you think, Ron?
I think Mac Jones is okay. I think he could thrive if Belichick had adapted with the times, if his drafts were better, if he had wide receivers with a pulse. I mean, you got Devontae Parker, who's catching one ball a game. I like Kendrick Bourne a lot, but he's not a number one wide receiver by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think Belichick and the offensive coordination and the scheme are doing Mac Jones any favors. Is Mac Jones the savior? No, he can't do it on his own. But I think it would be terrible to blame it on Mac Jones and not take a look inwardly at your organization.
And have we ever seen Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield in the same room at the same time? Aren't they sort of similar?
I wouldn't say that.
I'm just thinking neither of them's going to ever be a savior. But if they don't make mistakes and manage the game well, there's some similarities.
I agree with that comment. Sean Payton's been a huge disappointment. That what is it with these guys that come back? The only guy that I know that did the right thing was Cowler, just stayed away.
Well, Sean Payton, if you're making close to $20 million a year from the ownership that has more billions than the rest of the league put together times 3, why wouldn't you come back? Now, whether you're ready, look, this team is not very good. They weren't good last year. You can blame it all on their coaching staff last year. They just don't have enough. And Russell Wilson's on the wrong side of whatever he should be. So even though he's playing better.
My problem with Sean Payton is that he deflects blame too much.
Of course. Because he's a genius. Like the other guys. They start to believe it.
I agree. Drew Brees is obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He's getting better and better at what? At broadcasting, you mean? I don't know what you mean.
If Peyton was able to do that with Drew Brees, then Drew Brees was a hell of a lot better than we realized he was.
Hey, Drew Brees had if he never had that arm injury or shoulder, whatever it was with the Chargers, the whole league would have been different. It would have been amazing to see how that worked out, but didn't happen.
Ron, what was your DVOA topic this week?
Yeah. Now, I think you've said in the past, but I want you to actually respond to that. How much do you really use DVOA, which is defense adjusted value over average? I mean, to be honest, I use my own metrics, which are similar, but not DVOA. I don't particularly use DVOA. Before I get into a topic on that, what's your overall thoughts about DVOA?
When I followed it, I could see how it aligned with a lot of what I come up with, and it seems to get offline badly with some teams, and they miraculously get adjusted. And I believe that it's manually adjusted, and therefore I don't even consider DVOA a stat to even look at. I'll quote it when they say the Lions are number 1 or number 2 and stuff like that laughingly, but I believe that it's manually adjusted. because teams make these big jumps to fall in line when the box scores or what's happened don't support that jump. So, I could be wrong. I don't know, but that's just what I saw when I was monitoring DVOA. It would be right on a lot of teams, and then you get these outliers, and then the outliers would all of a sudden come in.
Yeah, I think in some cases we overthink things. The major thing is who's playing who. What are the matchup analysis this week? What do they say? San Francisco playing Cleveland and that defense is a lot different story than San Francisco playing Minnesota. Completely different defenses. So I have trouble with, I'd rather do my own personal matchup analysis and take a look at who's going to win the line of scrimmage. How many completions is the quarterback going to get? How, what's their game plan going to be? I don't want to go into something. It's analytical enough without trying to be too analytical.
I'll tell you, I will say one thing. They sometimes match up. It's not unusual for them to match up with what I have. And it's not unusual for them to be the outlier claiming something. And I have it the same way. So that's why I feel like I kind of have, I kind of understand what's going on with it because it matches up with a lot of what I do. And then things that are off just irrationally get corrected. And that's what I feel happens, because it happens in time periods or weeks where, wait a minute, how did it do this when this happened? So.
All right. Well, don't overthink the room, Coach Belichick's.
What I didn't know is that they have a DVOA for special teams. Apparently a special, they have a separate category for DVOA. I didn't know that. So I'm intrigued by that because I place a particular value on special teams, especially in college. But I may look into that a little bit more, but I want to know what is the foundation? What's it based on?
Did they tell you what the nuts and bolts of their DVOA equation?
Didn't have enough time to get into it, but it's a homework assignment for me.
Well, you have a homework assignment to look up the special teams and see what you observe about it, because that's important to you. You're paying careful attention to it, so I'll be interested to see what your reaction to it is.
Okay. Ted, what else? What are your other thoughts for this week?
Well, I love the Miami-Philadelphia matchup. That should be a hell of a game. Really looking forward to that one. I want to see what the Eagles defense does against the fastest team in the history of the world. That should be an unbelievable matchup. But Miami's got more touchdowns in the first 6 games than I think almost any team in the history of the Super Bowl era. They're like 3rd or 4th, something like that. So, they're doing everything right, and Philly just finds a way to win, except for last time. So, I love what Jalen Hurts is doing, because he's just showing he could do, again, whatever it takes to win, and he's become a really, really special quarterback. He's 8-0 against teams with winning records in the last 2 years. So anybody who thinks that he's a flash in the pan, that's all you need is that number.
I've got Miami, the number 1 team of improvement. I'm sorry, yes, Philadelphia is the number 1 team improving over the last 5 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty down on them after the first couple of weeks.
Right.
They were doing a lot of stuff poorly and across the board, and they've gradually, fared better and better and better. So,
right. Which figured, because we talked about it week 1, they got 2 new coordinators. It's not going to happen week 1. All of a sudden, we're mid-season form. So that makes a ton of sense, yet they still have great talent.
So in terms of your power numbers or your metrics, this is one of 3 games where I was surprised. But if you're a numbers player, if you bet on value, then you had Jacksonville last night, because there's no way, in my opinion, Jacksonville should have been the underdog in that game, not even close. You would have Detroit against Baltimore, because Detroit on a neutral field would be, in my opinion, 2.5 points better than Baltimore.
Mhm.
And in my numbers, and I don't know if your numbers are the same, I would have Miami favored over Philadelphia.
I agree with the first two things you said, but I would not have. I don't have Miami the better team.
Okay.
The defensive liability that they have is too much. It's dragging them down. So I have the number exactly where it sits at this moment.
Okay. I would have Miami a short favorite.
This game kind of reminds me. Teasers, are they friend or foe? And you made a tweet this morning, poo-pooing teasers and stuff. And it reminds me of this game because I found out a very unusual anomaly. Let's see. Where is it? Well, while I'm looking for it, a game like last night, for example. You just said you liked Jacksonville. You didn't bet them, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I bet them early in the week at +3.
If you couldn't have gotten the 3, would you have played them?
With knowing Lawrence was in, I would have played them at +1 or more.
Okay.
Well, you didn't.
My perspective is I'm getting to the point where I see a game like that, and I actually feel like a sucker to play +1.5 or +2.5. I'm just starting to feel like, why? It's a standalone game. If I'm going to put $100 on Jacksonville, why wouldn't I split that $100 up in three different teasers? I've got +8.5 going into 3 games I have coming up Sunday. So I'm getting 8.5. I'm basically getting a free roll on a game I was going to bet +2.5, and I'm getting 8.5. And I'll tell you one thing for sure. I certainly didn't want to have Jacksonville +2.5 when the Saints tied it up last night. I mean, I don't think you were happy about it at that point. It looked like the Saints, were going to keep on going, and Jacksonville was falling apart. That's just one game result, obviously, but the same BS with Seattle and Cincinnati. I feel like a sucker when I take +2.5 or I'm taking +3 on these short dogs. And when I can just tease them, at least for half, like Seattle and Cincinnati, I did half and half last week. And so I win one, I lose one. I can at least stomach that. But when you've got these Thursday games, I just want to, if there's a way to tease it, I'm just splitting it up in 3, teasing it with 3 games that I have going on Sunday. And I'm a happy camper, and I'm finding that it benefits me. It puts me in great positions, and it sends value over to the later games.
2 different strategies, but they kind of connect because you're talking about a game that you liked anyway. You're not necessarily forcing a play. My tweet was more or less, if you're not going to bet it, if you really don't like that side, or I wish I had more points. Now you're going to try to win 2 games instead of 1. That's my point with the teaser. But I also look at it from return on investment. According to my metrics, I had probably, based on everything I had, where the line was, the power rating play, the power rated performance over time, and whatever, conservatively, I thought I could win that play certainly at +3. At least 5 out of 8 times. If you bet it 8 times, you're going to get a tremendous return on investment. So I don't need to pair it up with another game if that's my return on investment for the straight play. Now, if you're going to play the game and with Jacksonville anyway, then that's a different strategy. If you're not going to play the game, if Jacksonville's a lean, I might feel different.
No, I would have played the game anyway. I mean, it was a play, and I'm, and I see the situation over and over again, and I just feel like a sucker because I'm not talking about games where I just have a lean on it. I'm talking about games that, by history of 1,000 games, I'm 57% plus to win that game. So that's another equation into the process of being able to do that. Is if I'm 57% to win at the normal price, what am I 6 points better? So that is also a great assistance. And I'm carrying that minus 282 value from Jacksonville in many teasers from last night. And I'm applying it to teams on Sunday, which might need that little extra help. Atlanta plus 8.5 and, other teams. So that's just my perspective on it. And I just think it's a mind bender for some people on how they're positioning their thinking. Because most people just want to bet the game and be done with it. Whereas I'm doing this for a living. I'm looking at the board day and night. I'm looking at it from 20 different directions. And, it's another conversation, but not only am I doing this, but I'm weaving in additional bets into what these first leg teasers open up for me.
How many open teasers do you have connected to Jacksonville for Sunday?
Well, none of them are open. They're all played into stuff that I had anyway. But I have 10 teasers with Jacksonville started. And,
10? Wow.
I've got them. I did my AK-47 into Sunday games. A little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, but you were going to be invested in Jacksonville anyway. My problem is the people who say, I don't really like Jacksonville at this price. I'm gonna jump them up because I need the extra points. In that case, why aren't you even looking at the other side if you don't like them? In that case, you're making a strong strategical point because you like that team anyway. And that's one of the things I used to do with teases, and sometimes I might still do it, especially in a defensive-minded game. If I have a 3-star bet on a team, if I really like that team, then I want to move it with a lot of other teams. But I also have a straight play on that team. I mean, I'm wheeling and keying that game. But if I have medium games that I wish I would play, well, why don't I just tease them medium games that I'm not playing, that I'm on the fence on, why not just tease them together? I think that would be negative ROI on my part.
Oh, no, I agree. Let me be clear. These are games that I want to bet anyway. And oftentimes I'll do what I did with Seattle and Cincinnati and split it half and half straight, +3, and tease it up. But last night I couldn't get the 3, number one. So I just couldn't justify a straight bet on it, even though it certainly qualified as a straight bet. So and that situation is just going to be, constantly reoccurring. Atlanta's in that exact same category. Why would I take 2.5 with Atlanta? It's an early game. I can tease it up to 8.5. And if I'm paying attention and I have other games that I'm going to bet either the afternoon, evening, or Monday, or even potentially, at a place that has next week's games up, I'll just tease Atlanta, see what happens, and carry that value forward, or bet the reset the back ends of what I tie Atlanta to.
Yeah, and I'm not. I want definitely to say that I'm not disagreeing with that particular strategy, especially with low totals. Atlanta's total is in the 38 range or something like that.
Yeah,
Jacksonville, New Orleans total was in the 40 range. Actually, was 39 for much of the week. So you're dealing with low variance.
Now, that's actually where I started off on this, and I got lost in that. Thanks for bringing up the totals again. Here's a strange anomaly I'm going to tell people, and give this some thought. This is really interesting, Ron. And when you hear it, it's going to make sense, I think. Believe it or not, like you're not supposed to tease high totals, right? I did some research this morning, and the high totals of 51 or 51.5 in 10-point teasers actually have an asininely high win rate. And so you sit there and go, well, how the hell is that possible? But when you think about it logically, if a total is that high, then both teams had the expectations of performing, offensively well. So I think that's why there's a strange anomaly with, hey, these games may not go over, but they're coming close overall, and it's measurable. And I found that extremely interesting this morning.
So you're talking like 51 down to 41 on the O's?
Yeah. So like you brought up in the Miami-Philadelphia game, we're looking at 51.5. The on 3-team teasers, it's a monster return. It's a monster return. It's
especially if you could get to 51 to 41 would be good.
I can't read my handwriting on the number. It got messy, but very interesting because that kind of makes sense. The explanation for that to me is that both teams score so well on an average basis. They may not get over that regular game total, but they don't miss by much.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there is a downside to teasing games with low totals when they're really low. Now, I'm talking about a college situation, but apply it to the NFL. If you have Iowa pretty much against anybody, but let's say Iowa, Kentucky last year's bowl with guys opting out because of the draft and this and that and whatever, you had a total that was probably around 33, 34, and the game was pretty much a pick 'em kind of thing, 1, 2, 3, and stuff like that. But when neither team can score and they're forcing things to happen, turnovers arise, pick sixes, safeties, and so on. Iowa won that game, I think 21-0 or something like that. And the reason why is because Kentucky was trying to do anything and everything to get back into the game and couldn't. So there's also a rationale on the flip side that real low total games can get out of whack because one team just has no ability to come back from a deficit.
Makes sense.
Was Damian Harris already out for the Bills?
Damian Harris was hurt badly in that game, so he wasn't going to be playing.
Okay.
He
so
was
the
taken to the
Lions
hospital.
the Lions injury report is out, and Branch and Gibbs are in.
Yeah.
So they're technically healthier than they were last week.
There's a very early comment in the chat that said Dan Campbell expects Gibbs to carry a relatively high workload. And I saw that before the show as well.
Yeah.
A lot of it will be game flow and how comfortable he's with. But if all goes well, as John McKay used to say, the ball's not heavy.
I think you're going to see something unusual in this game because they know that the wind's going to be a factor, and that's not going to be good for Goff. And at one point, they did not have a healthy running back ready to go this week. And Campbell actually mentioned, or one of the other coaches mentioned, don't be surprised if we we're set at receiver. And don't be surprised if we put Brown, if we set him up in the backfield or one of the other receivers. So if they had that sort of prep in mind, they were playing around with something. And even if Gibbs is in and they're moving the ball and Reynolds is good to go, I'll bet you see something tricky. Seems like a good opportunity.
I want to know if you guys –
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I want to know if you guys are thinking of sending a Christmas card to Foster Moreau the way he helped you out last night.
Did you know I had the overs?
No.
Moreau? Okay. I had him over 1.5 catches.
What did he end up with?
3.
Oh, okay. That's good.
And it was plus money. Foster Moreau was plus money.
No, but it's catches. The fourth catch that never happened is what I'm talking about. The end of the game.
Me.
Oh, that feels so bad. Oh, he had
the end of the game. He's wide open. It's off his fingertips. It's like, what? He's thinking.
I was hoping they would go for 2. I was hoping they'd go for 2.
No, of course. Of course you would. I don't think they would, but.
Ron, everybody's happy with these props you've been discussing. You got anything unusual this week?
I have to reach back in the thing. If I see anything for these 2 games, I'll post something.
While you're looking anyway, I was going to ask, do you both have Green Bay as a road favorite in Denver? I know as bad as Denver is, what the hell is the Packers shouldn't be a road favorite at anywhere right now, the way they're going.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved with either of these teams.
No, I don't blame you.
I'm hoping the line just stays where it is, so I don't have to get involved in it. Hey, listen, I half jokingly said on one of the other shows, I'm starting to think Peyton or the coaching is intentionally not optimizing their strategies and just putting their team in situations of not being able to be successful. I think he wants the low draft pick, and it's just too goofy. He's too good of a coach for this team to be this bad, and calling timeouts at bad times and just a lot of different things he's done makes me just it gets my ears perked up.
Well,
I don't trust him.
I'm not into the grassy knoll theory stuff myself.
I realize that. I just don't trust his coaching right now for whatever reason. Call him senile or intentionally not strategizing to optimal capacity. One of those two.
I think he has a hard time standing straight on the sidelines. There's way too much money in his wallet.
I don't have my prop sheets in front of me. I will say they had Green Bay and Denver posted as a pick 'em.
That's what I'm thinking.
So, and
is it still 1.5?
It's not
right.
not a big deal. I mean, Green Bay has its own set of problems. So
that's what I'm saying.
They got to worry about themselves.
Exactly.
Did I thought I had something.
You got no props then. All right, so
no props. What is your problem, Ron?
Well, I got them. I got 1 billion of them in the colleges, but that's a different story.
You know what? I don't think beggars are choosers here. Come on, make it worth somebody's time for tuning in.
All right, I'll give you one. I would be extremely surprised if in the Iowa game against Minnesota, with an all-time since 1995, the game is 30.5 is the over/under. It's the lowest over/under since 1995. I would be extremely surprised if the Minnesota quarterback does not throw an interception. I have him throwing an interception. His number last I checked was plus 110 to throw an interception.
Okay, we're going to give you a pat on the back for that.
Hopefully he throws it because I set it at minus 300.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
All right. I see Bertie wants, we didn't talk about the Vikings-Niners game. I haven't looked at the latest health thing. Of course, that's a Monday nighter. What are we seeing on health for San Francisco?
You know what? None of those guys are
practicing, right?
No, none of them are practicing yet. But as of yesterday, they normally wouldn't have anyway. So today you would find out if there's something unusual.
But no McCaffrey, no Debo.
We got a bunch of good injury news.
But you won't have it for that game because it's Monday.
Right.
But I think that one of those guys will probably still sit out. It looks like they're all good to go, but you would think that they're not going to, put them in unless they're pretty darn healthy or if one of the other ones is in. I don't know.
Especially McCaffrey, because, the way they use him, to me, unless he's feeling close to like, hey, I have nothing to worry about, I would sit him. Give him another week.
2 other guys on San Francisco worth looking at. Trent Williams.
Yeah.
If he doesn't go, that's a loss of probably half a point. And Dre Greenlaw did not play last week. If he doesn't play again, it opens up the middle of the field for Kirk Cousins. I wouldn't underestimate that as well.
Okay.
Well, Minnesota lost another key player last week. Forget his name.
Yeah, the defensive lineman, a sack guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was the best defensive guy that they have left.
Yeah, that's a loss too. It'll be interesting. Obviously, the difference scheming with McCaffrey and scheming without McCaffrey are 2 different things.
Big time.
And he's on the open top.
I don't like this. I don't like the spot for San Francisco that much. You would think, these are all dangerous spots for Buffalo, Kansas City, and San Francisco this week. I definitely have concern for those strong favorites. It just seems like they better be careful.
Yeah, I have value in the line because of the injuries for Minnesota, but no, I don't think there's no way that Shanahan is talking Cincy because they just lost a game.
No way.
So they're focused on Monday night. Standalone Monday night games get everybody's attention. They never focus beyond that.
There actually is one reason Shanahan is talking Cincy, because he knows he's on Sports USA next week.
There you go. Tell us our games for next week.
That's why.
Thank you for the segue.
That's our late game next week. Cincy at San Francisco. Early game changed to Atlanta at Tennessee.
Oh no, Bertie, we get to hear from Atlanta again and Tennessee. When we talk Tennessee next week, we could talk buy or sell, and maybe we'll have Tannehill news by next Thursday. So from that standpoint, it's going to be fascinating because I think Tennessee is possibly in free fall if they don't watch out.
And can Desmond Ridder throw 6 interceptions in 2 games?
The trade deadline is not after this week's games, but after next week's games, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming
That's
up.
all I have.
McCaffrey's on the field working on the sidelines. That's the update.
Okay, so is what, selling popcorn? What do you mean on the sidelines?
Exercising, stretching, that sort of thing.
Okay, that means absolutely nothing.
Hey, what do you want?
I'm just saying. No, thanks for the update.
I could be like CNN and just make up the news. So.
CNN? Oh, come on.
The New York Times, you call it. All right, guys. Rod and I will be back Tuesday at noon, and the 3 of us will be back next Friday.
You got it, guys. Let's have a good week.
Thanks for joining.